Hi guys, seems like I'm live. First message first. Never fly Latam. Don't fly with Latam Airlines. This is the main message I want to share with you. And now I can relax a bit. I'm not very experienced with being live on Facebook. I did it once yesterday on YouTube because there were so many passengers suffering and so many children sleeping on the floors of the airports and writing to me on Twitter in a group that I created to support the victims of Latam, that I had to do something about it. So I went live and I gave them some recommendations. But yes, this is my first time on Facebook and I am nervous. I'm not even sure what's going on. I can see that you're obviously joining, so that's great. Guys, okay, so I have a channel on YouTube called Afectados Latam, and I do make videos for that channel, so I got a bit more experience with that, but nobody knows me there. I mean, apart from my followers, obviously, and other, right, thank you, Carlos. So this is a bit different now. Today I'll be talking to you, hopefully my friends, family. I think some of you might be our guests guests of Hostel El Cielo Montañita from Ecuador. And I know a lot of you have become our friends, so I'm very proud of it. So guys, what I want to tell you today is that because I'm talking to people who are hopefully aware of whom I am, I truly hope, and I hope that that's not going to sound very arrogant, but I hope you know that I'm not an evil person. I mean, I like to think of myself as a decent human being, and I really try to incorporate decent values in my daughter, Lela, whom you probably know, if not from a live interaction, then from at least some photos and videos. So guys, I know you know whom you're dealing with, and I want to tell you, I am campaigning against one of the largest airlines on earth. It's a very powerful company called Latam. So what is Latam? Latam is what came from a merging between LAN, so like the Chilean national airlines, and TAM, the Brazilian ones. They merged a few years ago and they became Latam. Right, I do have a lot to say. I know some of you might think that I'm exaggerating, and some of you might think that I became obsessed with Latam. I'm basically the Latam girl. Some of you might think I'm possessed, and that's fine. I think I am obsessed, but that doesn't stem from the fact that I like to exaggerate, even if I do. It stems from the fact that since I was a little girl, I had a little phobia against injustice. And there are millions of people suffering around the globe. I know that. I didn't do enough to help them, obviously, but I always try to do something to contribute to those who are in need and suffer. But there is something going on here. So there is a company to which you pay money so that you are transported from one place to another, and it's not very cheap actually. We, for example, paid $2,500, I think, for a flight of 2 grown-up people and a baby that didn't get and Moses didn't get. She was just on our lap, and actually they refused to give her money or a safety belt, and they did horrible things to her and us. So we, for example, paid a lot of money, and in the end, we just suffered abuse, humiliation, threats. Until today, we're suffering death threats from Latam employees, and some horrible things happened. So obviously, it's not fine, but I would survive if it was just us, and I would just, try to open a case against them and move on with my life. However, what happened is that in the process of fighting for our rights and fighting for the recognition of the horrible things they did to us, also fighting for compensation because they did cause us thousands of dollars of financial damage, and they literally turned our life upside down, our lives, because it's 3 people involved. So in the process of fighting for justice, I accidentally discovered that we are just tiny percentage in an ocean of victims. Now, this is a huge subject. So when I say victims of Latam, and let's say I'm just going to be calling them like this generally, I'm talking about people who underwent so many things. It's hard to list actually, but let's start from like very basic stuff, you know. So flights are being cancelled on a daily basis, numerous flights. Apart from flights being cancelled, people don't get notified about cancellations, so they actually make the effort to arrive at the airport, you know. Or for example, there is a delay in a flight and it takes like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 12, 17 hours, and then people are waiting and waiting with babies, people are on wheelchairs. I have videos of that. And then suddenly they find out that actually there isn't a flight and the flight is cancelled completely, or they can wait for another 24, 48 or 72 hours. It did happen as well. It happened multiple times. So guys, that probably happens with other airlines, but here we're talking about a company that won't even give you a glass of water, won't even tell you have a right to make a phone call to your family, and we lived through it. And daily I help hundreds of people who go through those kind of experiences. They won't give you a hotel, they will give you a voucher for a coffee or pizza if you really fight hard, okay? So this is like a very basic example. Again, this probably happens with other airlines. Another very basic example would be that they will lose your luggage. And now I don't know the statistics of luggage lost for other airlines, but I do have a campaign against Latam, or you can say a campaign where I support victims of Latam. It's actually called Latam Victimas on Twitter. I did not have Twitter ever. I didn't even know how to use it. You who know me, you probably know that I'm not very technologically advanced, but I did learn how to use it. I created an account, and I fully devote that account to helping passengers who go through horrible things with Latam Airlines. So Latam Victimas. I'm actually putting the link. I think maybe you can even see it. I'm not sure. So. Right, people there write about what happens to them, they write complaints, and then I retweet, I answer them, we move on conversations to private messages, so I tell them what can be done. I also post stuff with recommendations, and I make videos where I explain to people what are the steps people should be taking, can be taken in order to fight for compensation, or just get any response from Latam, because that's bloody difficult, I promise you. So from that activity and from my Facebook page, Latam Horror or Latam Horror, and from YouTube, where people also write hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments about the terrible things they went through with Latam, I know how many of us are there. And to give you an example, people who suffered because of Latam, they sometimes make the effort to write a tweet, or to write on Facebook, or to write on Instagram, or to look for help. So out of the percentage that have phones or have access to the internet or know how to use it, because trust me, there were 220 passengers on the flight, one of the flights we took with Latam, on board with us, and I know some of them just don't use social media, So this is a percentage only, and then from that percentage, you have people who manage to find groups, or create blogs, or create vlogs, or actually make websites dedicated to the abuse that they suffered and other people suffered because of Latam. And I actually have a video on YouTube. It's in Spanish. Most of my activity on YouTube is in Spanish, where I just simply sit and I made a list of the groups only. And I just list the groups on Twitter, on Facebook. I give some advice as well on how to find them. And the videos, I think the video is like 8 minutes long. And then I say in the video, oh, actually, I obviously didn't manage to list all the groups, and there are new ones appearing like mushrooms after rain. And literally, when I was done making the video, I switched the phone off, and like 2 minutes later, a new group appeared, and another one. So when I say there are like thousands of victims, sometimes I say thousands, sometimes I say dozens of thousands. Actually, there are hundreds of thousands of victims, and this is some serious stuff, So let's go back to the point. I was listing the things they do to people. So lost luggage, for example. Again, a lot of airlines lose luggage. That's fine. We know that. It did happen to me with our airlines, but there is a slight difference. First of all, the amount of cases of lost luggage daily with Latam. Just to give you an example, on the 8th of August, we were kept in the airport for 9.5 hours. Actually, in total, almost 13. That was our 4th day of transit with the baby so sick from stress that she underwent that they had to call paramedics at the airport, actually. And there were 220 passengers on that flight. Eventually, they took us off the flight and they threatened us with prison in very difficult circumstances. Obviously, just thinking or talking about it makes me very upset. So once the passengers arrived in Madrid, because the flight was to Madrid, a few of them took our details because they were so horrified at what we were going through, and they kept in touch with us. So it turned out that Latam literally took off the luggage of half of the passengers, and we saw it happening, and we were asking like, why are you taking luggage off? And they just kept on the line saying, oh, it's the people that got too scared to fly. You know why they got too scared to fly? Because, well, we know it was, I don't know which time it happened, because it happens all the time, but the people that were on board with us were not unaware. So they put us on the plane, and then they said nothing. They kept us on the plane for 1 hour. When people like squeaked, you know, they were threatening us to call the police. No one could complain. And then when people started asking like, what's going on, you know, after some time, like literally an hour without a drop of water or explanations, they said that there was a problem with maintenance. So obviously it's kind of like, it happens, but it's not a very comforting thing, especially when you're an elderly lady, for example, or a mom with 3 kids, single mom with 3 kids flying, you know, and you had already waited for a while, and then you find out that there is a maintenance problem with the aircraft. And then some really messed up things happened. They called police against us, people defended us, and then they just removed all of us from the plane. And they like, okay, so there is a problem with maintenance. Maybe it's going to take another hour, 2 hours, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.5 hours later. In the process, some people were like, I'm not flying this thing, you know, it's just too scary. So there genuinely were people who got so stressed that they had to have help of paramedics at the airport. And there were a few ladies, I personally tried to calm them down, but I was scared myself, to be honest with you. And they resigned. So Latam staff would just tell us, oh, they're taking those suitcases off because people resigned from their flights. Or then they would say, no, we're not going to tell you anything. You don't have the right to ask questions, you know. And eventually it turned out that they took off half of the passengers' luggage, and they did it like consciously and didn't let people know about it. People arrived in Madrid without their stuff. So this happens on daily basis, multiple times a day. And again, I know it because I know I'm in touch with the people affected by Latam. That's fine. Okay, so they lose your luggage. So, you know, you're gonna just buy some stuff and then they're gonna compensate you, right? No, they don't. Or you're gonna write to them and say, oh guys, like, where's my luggage? And a week will pass, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, you know, and they just don't have your luggage, and they ignore you. And you write on Facebook on their page, and if you become too annoying and you write too many comments, they just block you from the page. So you can neither communicate with them on Facebook, and they like to think of themselves as that company that is like active in social media, and they do spend tons of money in publicity. Or they will block you completely so that you can't make comments. Obviously that happened to me. I was like blocked within the first day or two. And a very curious thing they did to us, some of you I know are actually experts in, there's someone who works for Google and someone who knows quite a lot about Facebook. I can see from people who are joining. So they actually managed to take our page down, you know. When we were still in Ecuador, in Guayaquil, when we were stuck in transit for several days, our lawyer created a page for passengers from Ecuador only, because there are tons of pages for passengers affected from Argentina and Chile, and there is one in English, you know, dozens of pages. So he created one in order to to sue them and help other people who are affected by Latam. By the time we reached Poland, that page was non-existent. They managed to take it down, or they reported it or something. And then a day later, when I posted something about Latam, the employees started offending me, saying that I'm mentally unstable and this and that. And then they blocked me because I was asking them for a reservation number so that we would have the right to make a complaint on their own website. But after 2 weeks of me asking, first they blocked me from commenting, and then I was actually in touch with them, corresponding over Messenger. But I mean, in touch meaning I would ask and they would not respond, or I would ask and they would say, wait for 48 hours. After 48 hours, I would ask again and again and again. And it was literally just about our reservation number because we were never given one. So eventually they just blocked me completely, so I couldn't even message them on Messenger. And that happens to a lot of people, a lot. So you will not get compensated, and they might find their luggage eventually, so I really hope for that, but they might not. And then I promise you it will be hell to fight for compensation. And about that I might talk later, let's see, because this is obviously getting very long. Another thing that happens when it comes to luggage is that your luggage is lost, and then they find it, and then you finally get it back. That means you have to actually go to the airport and pick it up. And your valuables are missing. It can be, and I'm quoting from real life examples. It can be a Rolex watch, it can be your MacBook, it can be your phone, it can be your jewelry, it can be money that you put in the suitcase, and people did it. It can be cancer medicine, or it can be clothes or presents you bought for your family when you were in Galapagos. It can be literally anything. And if you want to verify if I'm speaking the truth, because obviously you don't want to dedicate as much time as I do into this cause, and read through 19,000 or 20,000 of my retweets from victims of Latam on Twitter. This is 20,000 retweets within 3-4 months since I had opened Twitter, so really not that long. And it's only from one of the accounts, Latam Airlines, not the national ones, because each country has its own account. So it's a percentage, it's like a drop in the ocean of complaints. But you can simply go to Robos and Latam page on Facebook, or you can come to conclusion that if there is something out of 30 groups or more of victims of Latam, if there is something that is like theft in Latam, where people literally just support one another and give each other advice on what to do. Oh my God, my stuff was stolen, what do I do? They're not reacting, they're not responding, then it probably means there is a problem, right? Okay, so what happens is that you could say, all right, so don't send your valuables in the suitcase, in the main luggage, just have them on you, right? That could be an option, but there is a little problem. It happens so often. And maybe I won't each time say, oh, if you want to verify, just go to my accounts on Twitter. Just trust me, I know what I'm talking about. So you're boarding the plane and you have your hand luggage on you and it's completely, totally within the size. And then they'll say, no, it's going to the main luggage. And you're like, no, I don't, it's my laptop, it's my work stuff, it's my documents. I don't want it. No, it has to be on me. You want to say one more word? We're calling the police against you. That's literally what they do. Or one more word and you're not flying. Or you don't have anything to say. Your luggage is going down. There are videos of them doing that to people on YouTube. You can see that. So then you end up not wanting to do it, but having to do it, or not flying, or going to prison, as they claim, because they did it to us twice. And it doesn't matter if you have a baby in your arms or a wheelchair. Latam actually lost some cases that it got sued a few times for discrimination against people with disabilities. And they, in one case, it took many years, but the person managed to win. Obviously, the system of justice is, well, I don't want to say anything bad about it, but it just doesn't, work as effectively in South America as it does in Europe or the States. And a good example for that will be, this is on a personal note, what happened to us happened in Ecuador. So we have all the right to sue them in Ecuador, and we actually won a case against them in the Court for Consumer Rights called Defensoría del Pueblo, which ended up like not resulting in anything apart from us having the verdict and knowing what articles of constitution they broke in the way they treated us, mistreated us, and abused us and our baby. But it's kind of not very encouraging when you talk to a lawyer specializing in aviation, and it's difficult to find them, but we managed to. And then that very person that wants to help you and stuff, will say, look, the one thing you have to understand is that it's you, a human being, versus a huge economical power. So yes, Latam is one of the largest airlines in the world. And you might want to look up what's the connection between the president of Chile and that company. It's horrifying. And when Yashid Farjak asked in some comments, why do people still fly with Latam? Why don't they just stop flying, Then the answer is simple. People still fly with Latam because they have monopoly in a lot of cases. And B, because they often don't sell themselves as Latam. They often, and this happened to us, they sell themselves as LAN, and LAN was the pride of Chilean aviation, So even I, for example, and I think you know me, you know that I'm well informed and well traveled. I thought I'm flying with LAN, which is like, the famous Chilean airline. And then I come to the airport and I'm like, where is LAN? And I spent quite a while looking for the LAN check-in point, and no, there isn't any. I'm flying with Latam. I'm like, okay. And another thing is that so monopoly, the confusion with the branding. Oh, by the way, now if you Google LAN, they redirect you to Latam page, and I don't know if to believe it or if you believe it, but actually, One2Trip, with whom we bought the ticket, after they managed to figure out that Latam stole our flight back to Ecuador. And it wasn't easy to figure it out because they even refused to talk to travel agents. So we have 58 emails that tell the story of how One2Trip was trying to simply find out like why we bought tickets with them and why we no longer have the tickets and what's going on. So those guys claim that thanks to my efforts, quote, oh, Monica, I know you went through so much, but at least you're changing the world for the better. Look, Latam just actually updated, I don't know how to say like technically, but they redirect people now. So if you Google LAN, it shows that it's actually Latam. So yay, but I wish, it's great. It's great. And also, just to answer that question, why people are flying with them, it's because obviously when you Google Latam or Latam issues, you will see, first thing you'll see is like airline quality, 2 stars, 1 star, but it's because people don't know enough about it. So that there is something we can do about it, and that's what I'm doing. Sorry for changing the subjects all the time, but it's all about this. I want to ask you for help. I want to ask you to share this. I know it's super long and convoluted, and I obviously have a lot to say, but if you guys know me and my family, if you know Lela, she's cute. She's never done anything bad in her life, and she went through a horror, like literally we all went through hell. But my daughter, who was like like she was a light bulb for all those passengers there at those airports when we were in transit with Latam for such a long time. And even when she was 6, she was just so positive and trying to smile. And she saw so much, and she was being sent to prison with me and Daniel. Like, she actually got so awfully sick. We all got so sick that we all needed medical help, and I received it at the airport and later on, Dan as well, and Lela as well. And then upon arriving in Warsaw, we had to immediately go to the emergency at the Warsaw Children's Hospital, where I refused to hospitalize her. They forced me to hospitalize her, but I signed papers, and on my responsibility, I didn't leave her in the hospital because she had gone through so much. I just couldn't do it to her. But she, I'm not gonna give you the medical details. It took her a month and a half to recover, and much longer to recover emotionally. it was a traumatic thing to happen to us and our baby. So basically what I'm trying to say is that, and I hope it's not like emotional manipulation, but I can see that a lot of you friends were very, very supportive to us when the stuff was happening, and I was posting in August. But when I post something about Latam on my Facebook, it doesn't really have much response from you. So I actually need your help. I genuinely need your help. And again, I don't want to emotionally blackmail you, but guys, if you like us, if you think we are good people, which I really hope we are, you know, we would not hurt a fly. And someone hurt us a lot, and they're hurting a lot of people every single day, and no one in power is doing anything about it. So you know what? At the airport in Guayaquil, when my baby was crying so bad, and she was exhausted and sick, and they would not even allow us to sit in the lounge so that she could sleep after, God, I don't know how many hours of being there, for the 5th day, I think, of being at the airports. I said to them, I'm not rich, I'm no one, but I will pay you back. You will pay me for what you did to my baby. And if there are any mothers listening to this or watching, you know what I mean. They hurt my baby, and she didn't do anything wrong. None of us did anything wrong. This whole thing stemmed out of the fact that Latam claimed we needed a visa, and Lela needed a visa to fly to Poland, which she did not, because she's a daughter of a Polish mom, and she is a family member of an EU citizen, correct? Right, so Latam didn't know that, and I was trying to explain, and for that they sent police and 2 groups of armed men against me and Lela, separated me from Daniel. They were pushing and screaming and harassing us and sending us to prison, and it was really terrible. This is one of the 2 times they did that to us in 6 days. Anyway, what I need from you is, if you can, please share this. This is super long, so if you don't want to share this, that's fine. But I put links to my channel and links to some videos on, I don't know, next to this video that I'm doing now. I also put a link to my Twitter account. Please, when you watch a video on YouTube, give it like or put a comment. When you give a like, it doesn't mean that you like that Latam did that to us, obviously. And put a comment, you know. I promised them, I said, you have no idea what fire you're playing with. I mean, I'm very determined, very determined. I like to do good stuff in life, and this seems like the right stuff, you know. What they do to people is not right. It's not right, it's unacceptable. And they just don't stop. They just don't stop. Every day, more and more and more and more people. And I'm not gonna tell you the details of what message they just sent to their passengers, but it's getting worse. And they even mistreat their own employees so bad that now they're going on strike. 1,000 employees are going on strike for 5 days, I think. So that's gonna be a complete collapse. And hundreds and thousands of people are writing saying, guys, what's going on with the strike? Can you please give us updates? No, they don't respond. So people are hanging in the air, not knowing what's going to happen, in a limbo. Please share one of my videos, share, you know, or write, you know, just write on Facebook, people don't fly with Latam. Or the biggest favor you could do me, please, if you can, take the link for this video and post it next to the photos on Latam Airlines page on Facebook. I'm blocked, so I can't do it anymore. I'm censored, you know. Nothing is going to happen to you if you do it. I promise. I'll defend you if they try to go after you. But it will help greatly. To be honest with you, even I didn't expect what is going to be the visibility of my videos on YouTube. I think it's pretty great. I didn't imagine that. I reached over 200 something views on YouTube only within a few months. So I don't know, for me this is like, wow, big, you know, and hundreds of comments of people sharing their stories. So basically people are finding out, you know, and people are writing to me saying, thank God I found out, you know, I'm not gonna fly with them. Most often it's too late, and people contact me once they get screwed by Latam. So please share, please let your people know, let your friends, family, you know, whoever you know, so that then no one can ask me, no one has to ask me again saying, Monica, if they do these horrible things to people, why do people still fly with them, you know? Right. So this is the main message. And now we can go back to what they do to people. Something that I, apart from like literally like atrocities, there was actually an accident on one of their flights when a flight attendant poured hot boiling coffee during turbulences to a child, and then it spilled on the child. His skin peeled off alive, and for 3 hours he was screaming his guts out. And Latam staff did not know where the first aid kit was. And when they found it, it turned out everything in it was expired. So they were giving the mom napkins, to put on his skin. The kid was crying and screaming for 3 hours straight. When they arrived in Lima, which was, I think, connecting flight. I'm in touch with that mom, by the way. The kid was like passed out with pain, and they did not help the woman. She had to cover the expenses, take the kid out of the airport. He underwent five surgeries at once, like one after another, plastic surgeries, and he's still recovering. And then when the woman contacted Latam to say, like, what's going on, like, how come you're not assuming responsibility, they said it was her fault because she fell asleep next to her child. So they also upset her feelings tremendously, and now she's suing them, so good for her. They, for example, lost a cat. And maybe it seems like not a big deal for you, but I think if you have pets, you can imagine. Ana Balcanazar, a lovely girl from Ecuador, she was flying to Chile. Sorry, no, Buenos Aires. No, I can't remember, but we are in touch. And they lost her cat, Manu. They just lost it. Actually, they didn't lose it. You know what they did? Apart from lying, because that's their favorite thing to do, seems like that to me. She had a flight from Ecuador to Chile, let's say, okay, with a connecting flight in Lima. So they told her when she was handing the cat over, they said, you will be able to see your cat again right before boarding, and you'll be able to feed him, give him some water, pet, and then when she came to do that, feed the cat, and see him she didn't know last time, they were like, no, the cat is already gone, like, you don't have the right to do that. She was upset, but she couldn't do anything because if you say a word, you might go to prison in Guayaquil, for example. So do you really want to end up in prison for asking a question to Latam staff? I don't know. We didn't. Eventually, Anna saw that the box in which the cat was being transported was actually wrapped in plastic, and she did not do it. So they wrapped the poor cat in plastic, like cling film, And then when she arrived at her final destination, the cat was nowhere to be found. So the media got engaged, animal rights organizations helped her. I was doing everything I could to help, and retweeting. And it was a horror, a nightmare for her. The cat was never found, and this was in September, October. So I think we can imagine this is not the first case. They did horrible things to animals. Not the first case. Literally like 2 weeks ago, they sent dogs into a completely opposite direction across the globe, and the owners went to their destination. The animals were lost. Guys, we're talking about like an airline with whom you let your children fly with assistance, and they hand in your children to whoever shows up at the airport, and they don't even check their IDs, or they kind of like lose the children. The children just wander around the airport, because, for example, there is 17 hours delay and no one takes care of the kids. We're talking about an airline that steals cancer medication, or that loses a suitcase of someone who has medicine that keeps that person alive, and they don't even respond when the person writes. We're talking about an airline that breaks wheelchairs or pushchairs, and never pays for that. Oh, guys, there is so much of it. Obviously, I can keep on going for a day or two, but trust me, they do. Most nightmarish things to people. Something that struck me is that here in Europe, when I mentioned some stuff to a few people, a lot of people actually, but they were like really shocked about something that for me is not even such a big deal, because for me, downgrading someone's dignity, humiliating someone is worse than anything. And trust me, they did cause us huge financial loss. But people get really shocked at something that I'll describe to you now. So you buy a ticket with Latam, and you're on the website and you're paying, and then the payment goes through. Oops, it doesn't. So you have to pay again. Okay, so you pay again, the payment is going through. Oh no, it wasn't accepted. So what happens is that you might end up paying for a flight 2 or 3 times. And so doble cargo, doble cobro, as they call it in Spanish. And then you will spend months fighting for your money back. And the best part is that you might end up not getting the ticket, actually. So people tell me, oh, this is bullshit. Like, people can just write to Visa or MasterCard, and complain about it and get their money back. No, they can't. Funnily enough, one of the people that contacted me recently is a Polish guy. Hello, maybe you're watching, from London. And he's one of the people that are going through trying to get their money back from Latam. So what happened to him is that he paid with PayPal. Sorry, this is different. He wasn't charged double, but just to give you an example, he was charged a lot of money, like $2,600 pounds, sorry. And then he bought a flexible ticket. So actually something terrible happened and he couldn't fly. So he was like, oh, can I have my money back? Something happened. Yes, of course, no problem. You just have to wait for 14 days. He's like, that's a long time, but whatever. He waited. No money. He waited more. Then they like, another 14 days, please. He waited. Eventually, he contacted PayPal and he's like, I'm not getting my money back from Latam. What does PayPal say? Oh, this is within the airline's policy. We have nothing to do with it. So what happens here is that when it comes to any kind of abuse or problems with airlines, how do I put it properly in legal terms? There is something called, I always speak Spanish when I talk about these things, so ley aeronáutica, like aviation law, right? And that's something very, very complex and kind of like that protects the airlines a lot. So I would love to contribute to the law being changed, but for now it is the way it is. So what happens is that you have your consumer rights, you have your human rights, you have children's rights, right? You have animal rights, but when you're flying with someone, you actually under aviation law. So, for example, when we won the case against Latam in the Consumer Rights Court in Ecuador, in Guayaquil, and they listed the articles of constitution that Latam violated in the way they treated us, this was only about the abuse we underwent on the 4th of August, nothing to do with the events that followed, which were much worse, actually. So that's fine, we won the case, but then it turned out that all of it is about consumer law. And this is aviation law. So the whole subject matter is very complicated. And that's why I made one video when I said, guys, spare yourself the hassle and don't fly with them, because even if you take the risk, later on, you might want to fight for your compensation or your rights, and it's bloody difficult. It really is. It's been 7 months of me, our family, me really trying to do everything I can to, well, you know me, to get help, and we still have not, Also bear in mind one thing, when you fly, so basically there is Montreal Convention, and that's like a very important document about aviation law from 1999, that states how you can sue the company, and a lot of details. But imagine when you fly, let's say you fly from Ecuador, where we used to live, to Australia, and so the destination will be different from the departure place, and the company is South American from Chile. So wherever you go back to your home place, for example, me going back to Poland, which is not even really my home place, because obviously it was Ecuador, it was, and in a second I'll tell you why it was. You will find it very difficult to sue a company from Chile, and no consumer rights organization will help you within your continent, for example, because in Europe they only can do something about the companies registered in Europe. So that's a disaster. Okay, and now this is especially for the guests. I don't know if there are any of you, but whoever is watching it, that we used to live in Ecuador. We had a hostel in Montañita, El Cielo Montañita. I hope you thought of us as good hosts and happy people living there. what happened with Latam is that after they caused us a tremendous abuse on the 4th of August, for a day and a half, I was trying to beg them to let us stay in a hotel until they let us out of the country, and that they give us a flight to compensate for the flight that we lost because of their ignorance, and for another flight that we lost for 500 euros from Madrid to Poland. So I was doing everything I could to sort it out, but it wasn't possible. So we eventually asked a lawyer for help, and then we filed the case against Latam. And then they actually gave us a compensation flight, but to Frankfurt. And then they took us off that flight and caused us another trauma. So what happened on the 8th of August is that we were supposed to fly on that compensation flight to Frankfurt, but and they knew very, very well since 4th of August that Daniel had a visa. He was in Ecuador on a visa, and his visa was expiring on the 8th of August at midnight. Okay? They knew it very well. They themselves checked it upon me informing them. So what they did is that at 11 p.m. on the 8th of August, they illegally took us off board using police and security, threatening us with prison, which I already said many times, I know, but it was the second time, if you can believe it, against the volition of all of the passengers who were defending us. They removed us from the plane, and in that way, knowingly, because I was telling them while they were doing it, I was saying, if you do it, we won't be able to go back to Ecuador once we leave, because the law of Ecuador says, if you overstay your visa, you can't go back for 9 months. So, and we had a return flight for the 25th of November, which we only then, after a month and a half of being in Poland, accidentally found out that they stole from us that day of 4th of August, when they originally took us off a flight to which we had tickets and boarding passes and everything. They actually confiscated everything from us. So we were unable to go back to Ecuador, and we had our plans and dreams, and all of it went down the drain basically, and we had to create like a new life and organize ourselves in Poland. As you guys know, Daniel doesn't speak Polish, so and he only had 3 months of visa here, so trust me, it cost us a lot of money and effort, and we're obviously trying to make the best out of it, but it's not a very happy ending, and it's not the end yet. Something else I want to mention to you, and hopefully this will show you how much I count on your help. Apart from everything we went through, and I did not list everything, but it's too much to tell you, and I'm losing my voice. At some point during all of this, an employee of Latam, and this is the first one, then later on there were more, started persecuting us online. So he started on YouTube, and then he moved on to Facebook. And at first it was just calling us horrible, horrible names, and insinuating that, we were retarded and insane, and that I'm the biggest, I can't use this vocabulary, but something very horrible of a woman. And then it moved on to saying that it's his biggest joy that Latam did it to us, then that he would ensure that Latam will hurt us again, then that there was nothing better in his life than seeing me cry with my child in my arms, and that he will put all his powers and efforts into ensuring that it wasn't the first time that Latam hurt us, and then that he will find us wherever we are in South America, specifically to spit in my face, then to beat me up, and then eventually he was like, die, you and your family. And I said, listen, I'll have to report this, I'll literally take this to the police, and I did. And oh guys, he was saying so many horrible things, and obviously I have support of a lot of you and the groups of Latam victim support, but it's still not cool, and it's pretty traumatizing when someone is wishing death to your baby. And when you live in South America and you will have to go back there at some point, and someone says, someone who works for airlines says, I'll find you and your family no matter what it costs me to pay you back, and I never saw the guy. I don't know whom he is. I just know he works for Latam, and I wrote to Latam about it multiple times. They did absolutely nothing. And recently it started again with a different guy. Also, similar to Latam calling me a terrorist, because I have a picture with these smileys from Afghanistan. Some of you know that I've traveled a lot. And I always say it's very ironic that I've traveled half the world, hitchhiking by myself, and I loved it, and nothing really bad ever happened to me during Arab revolutions, and just crazy circumstances. And people gave me so much and helped me so much. And those journeys, me stuck in the middle of the desert in Sinai, or in jungles or by myself, not without a map, without a phone, without a tablet, it was so much more convenient, comfortable, safe, and pleasant than flying with Latam. That I think that really puts it in perspective, no? Okay, so I think you by now figured that there is a huge problem. I think you figured that I have a lot to say. I'm going to finish now. I really kindly ask you to share this video or share any of my stuff, to comment, to let your friends and family know that there is such a problem. I wrote to so many people, because even ex-president of Ecuador was mistreated by them, Sarah Michelle Gellar, a lot of celebrities actually. Sarah Michelle Gellar won a case against them, so she's no longer bothered. And I wrote to so many organizations, and daily I reach out and I contact people and organizations asking for help, not just for me, but all of these people, all of the victims of Latam. Bear in mind that the examples I gave you about what they do to people are only a drop in the ocean of abuse. And unfortunately, every single day there are more and more victims. And I wrote to the guy, the author of Dirty Money series from Netflix, never heard back from him. I mean, if you know anyone, if you guys have any connections, there was an article about my cause, my campaign in Chile, so that's great. Thank you so much for it. And a lot of people are like, I don't know, recommending me to people and promoting this campaign. But obviously, I don't have as much money as Latam does, so my publicity is, on Monica's level, and it's kind of hard because I'm censored and blocked on Latam page. So, what I can count on, and I know I can because you guys, I mean, it's the biggest pride of my life, maybe competing with Lela, my baby, but my friends, I know you are incredible. I know you're all over the world. Don't say, oh, I'll never have anything to do with Latam, because I mean, India, actually, they operate even in Australia and South Africa and all over the globe, one of the largest airlines on earth. Please help, don't ignore it, don't underestimate it. Every single case and every single victim, as I call it, it's like genuine human suffering, and they literally like turn people's lives into hell sometimes and make people feel very vulnerable, and that's not cool, because we're clients, we're passengers, we're humans, and I just don't accept it. And I know a lot of you, have such beautiful and high values. You would never allow for this to happen if you knew. So now you know, okay? And I'm sure this is not the last video I'm recording. Thank you so much. I don't know if you were listening. This is a very long video. Please help. Thank you. Bye-bye.